Handbags Hangout. We're talking about the FA Cup semi-final this afternoon. I'm James Brown from Sabotage Times. And we are joined by David Priest, the Barnsley goalkeeper and Sabotage Times writer. By George, who's a pissed-off Spurs fan. By Ryan, who's a very happy Chelsea fan. Sam Delaney, who doesn't care about either of them, is a West Ham fan. Tom, who is a not very happy Spurs fan. And Will, who I imagine is a delighted Chelsea fan. And on the far left there, in his red and white shirt, he's not an ice hockey referee. It's Andy Dawson, who's Profanity Swan, and Diana in Heaven on Twitter, a big star of Twitter. Welcome, everybody. Feel free to get stuck in. Let's start with you, Sam. You probably hate both teams. What did you think about the match? Were you happy with who won?
Well, yeah, usually it's confusing for a West Ham fan to know who you want to lose more, but I quite like the idea of Spurs getting to the final because I thought Spurs-Liverpool sounded like an exciting match, sort of had a ring to it. And Spurs, when they're on form, have been a joy to watch this season. And it's easier to sort of not hate them so much when you're in a different division. However, I just thought Spurs were poor today, and I think that the goal that wasn't was kind of like is an easy excuse for Tottenham now because they can point to that as the turning point in the game, but that covers up the fact that Spurs were second best today and would have almost certainly lost either way. You could see that.
They've been second best for about 8 weeks, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. They've run out of steam, like we were saying before, but partly because they rotate. But I also wonder whether Harry Redknapp, who is great at various elements of management, but is still very much old school in terms of the way in which the fitness and stuff is run at Tottenham. And so you can see why his team kind of often get off to a flying start and fade towards the end of the season. It's not just to do with the rotation of the squad, but it's him, Kevin Bond, and Joe Jordan. They're all kind of quite old school coaches. I think it's still chips and ketchup in the old canteen at Spurs.
Don't threaten Joe Jordan. You saw what happened to Gattuso.
Yeah, no, I know.
Joe's about 60.
Well, I wouldn't do it to his
a young man.
Gattuso made the mistake of doing it to his face. I'm doing it behind his back.
We have Joe here actually.
Tuned in to this.
Tom, you're sitting there looking very dejected. Do you think there was some fair criticism of how Spurs set out today?
I thought Spurs looked pretty good in the first half. I didn't think particularly they got dominated by Chelsea early on. I thought it was quite a scrappy game, to be honest, in the first 45 minutes. I thought it was only really when Spurs had to chase the game, they brought on Defoe, and the game opened up a little bit. That was when Chelsea were able to hurt them a bit on the break. I don't disagree that Redknapp might have some weaknesses when it comes to rotation and when it comes to preserving players. I also think that in January Tottenham didn't do enough. I think today really their only option off the bench was Defoe, really, who might change the game. They haven't really got anyone out wide who can do anything different. They haven't really got anyone up front who they can bring on and who might actually change the game, really. I think that's costing.
Tom, I would actually say you had 5 game changers, all playing in the midfield and the front line. I looked at that starting lineup. It was like when Ozzy Ardiles used to manage. You pretty much had 5 strikers. Do you not think it was the case that maybe you could have done with a little bit more grit at the centre of the midfield?
But it was like that from August until January as well. And I mean, they won. They were third in the league with 13 points ahead of Arsenal. So I mean, it's not as though that's been a problem all year. I mean, at the beginning of the year, Parker played deep, and Modric sits quite deep as well. There's sort of a common misnomer really that Modric is this attacking midfielder. He likes to sit quite deep as well.
Playmaker. And but you had a weakened defence, and it was very clear today. Drogba, Mata especially, was exposing the space behind the 2 centre halves. So it's a big problem for Spurs. Would you agree with me, George? Let's talk about your weakened defence today.
Yeah, I think it really does pay me to say it, but I think Ledley King is very much on his last leg. It's for the last sort of 6 months or so. I think he's been in and out of injury for the last 4 or 5 years, but the last 6 months I think it's really taken its toll. And I think Gallas, great player for the last 10-15 years, but again I think he's coming towards the end, and as experienced and as quality as they have been, I think Drogba exposed them, and even him at 34 was able to completely bully the pair of them, and it did cost us a little bit today.
Greasy, we talked about the defence there. What do you make of the decision to stick with the goalkeeper who's been playing in the, Culaccini's been playing in the cups?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a massive mistake today, especially since they've been struggling a little bit with the central defensive partnerships. They've obviously missed Yunus Kabul. I tend to disagree about Ledley King because 6 weeks ago I just think he was playing out of his skin. I seen him. He was bullying players, using his strength, bringing the ball out of defence. He still looked a class apart, I think.
As a goalkeeper, which defence would you rather have had in front of you?
Yeah, even with David Luiz, I still want to be in the Chelsea goal every day of the week. I mean, the fact that they weren't settled at the back anyway, they needed the security of having somebody who's been playing with the players all season. And they left him on the bench today, which was a massive mistake in my eyes.
Bringing Will in now. Will, what I'm interested to know is, halfway through that first half, how were you feeling? Because Spurs, before you scored, to me looked like they were dominating the game.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say dominated. They definitely had a couple of good chances. To be honest, it was in a 5-minute period when they had those two chances. Before it, I was feeling okay. Afterwards, I was feeling relieved and thinking, okay, Chelsea can take advantage of this. I was never too worried because I always thought that Chelsea could come back just because of Spurs' fitness issues. I mean, Chelsea aren't the fittest team in the world at the moment, but then Spurs are, they're in a really bad situation. So I was never too uncomfortable, I didn't think, today, which is nice.
All right, Ryan now. Ryan, were you happy with the way that Di Matteo set up? Putting Drogba up front, not fielding any weakened side for the Champions League?
I was quite surprised, to be honest. I expected Torres to start today, purely to rest Drogba for Barcelona, which I think is going to be he's going to dominate the Barca defence. Hopefully, he usually plays well against them, but you can't question the selection after the performance he's put in today and the history he's got at Wembley as well. I mean, as Chelsea fans, we've seen a lot of William Gallas, and I don't think I've seen anyone do to Gallas what Drogba did today. I think he was phenomenal. I still rate Gallas as a defender. He may not be the player he was, but I thought that he especially got selection right up front, picking Drogba over Torres.
Sam,
shape as well. He set up with a good shape. So.
Sam, what did you think of the coverage compared to ESPN? Did you see the Liverpool match yesterday?
No, because I was at West Ham yesterday.
Andy, did you watch it yesterday?
Doing ESPN?
Sorry, yeah, I saw some of it. I saw some football, and I also saw lots of shots of celebrities in the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, you have an alter ego as a celebrity gossip columnist. Were you impressed with the lineup that ESPN presented? You had Ian Rush, obviously. You also had Judi Dench. There was Mr. and Mrs. Mick McCarthy. I think Mick needs to take a good look at himself there. We've also... Who else was there? I mean, there were so many unused... Tommy Steele was there. They really brought out the celebs. ITV is a big celebrity. I mean, Sam, you've edited Heat magazine. Is it important to be able to bring out your celebrity fans for a semi-final?
I think it is, yeah. It's very important to bring out your see who it is each side, because it gives you a psychological edge. If you can't rustle up a very deep, like say if Leeds, the best they would have was say like some bloke off of this. We were playing you, and we had like Russell Brand and like Noel Edmonds and David Essex. Straight away, we'd have the psychological edge over your team. The players would know it; they'd be aware. They'd feel like a bit Mickey Mouse, and all of these little things help. At the top level, the margins are so narrow that often it comes down to who has the better celebrity fans. So absolutely.
Tracy, do you feel like that? Do you ever get a bit of inspiration from the celebrity fans?
Well, we don't get many celebrities down here at Barnsley, although we do have we do have Dickie Bird.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a good one.
He's a Man U fan, isn't he?
No, he's a Barnsley fan.
He was at the West Ham Barnsley. He was at the Barnsley West Ham game the other day because they did a close-up on him, and that was on the BBC. They did a close-up of Dickie Bird during one of the narrow periods where West Ham weren't scoring a goal. They got a shot of him.
Okay, a little bit of a light into Mel Chappell's joined us now as a Spurs fan and also a very well-respected football agent. Mel,
yeah.
Can I just ask you one question?
Yeah.
Was this match the game that showed everybody that Harry Redknapp should not be the England manager?
Yes.
No, I don't think I would choose this match because I don't think any manager can deal with decisions like that. The Spurs players are tired. They've been tired. We look tired. We were poor. We probably would have lost. But I don't know what you do when you get a decision like that at such a crucial point of the game. That, from my point of view, I lost interest at that point. It was game over. It was no longer a fair contest. So, as far as
the players might have felt like that, Mel.
I think our players are so tired that psychologically and physically, if you get a decision that bad and so unjust when you're shattered, which they are, they're running on empty, both psychologically and physically, that has to have an effect, and it would have given Chelsea a boost. So for anyone to say they went on and got 4 or 5, it's completely irrelevant. It completely changed the match, and it wasn't a decision. I was there, and I was on the corner flag of that goal, and I could see quite clearly that it didn't go in. I looked at the linesman didn't give it, and the ref paused for at least 10 seconds before blowing his whistle. He can't possibly have known. And I think if you're a team that are struggling for confidence and form, and you're shattered, that's a soul-destroying decision. So, there's 2 separate questions. Do I think Harry should be England manager? No. Based on today.
But this is something I just want to dwell on, because at Leeds, for a period at Leeds, we had a lot of managers who looked great on the telly. We had Venables, we had George Graham, we had Peter Reid. They're much better pundits than they are managers nowadays. And I think there's an element about that with Redknapp. I think the fact that people like him across the footballing spectrum, they like him because he's a likeable bloke, not because he's
a brilliant. He's one of the greatest PR men out there. His personal PR is staggeringly good. I sit and listen to him, and I've been at live events with him, and he can hold an audience in his hand. He's brilliant at it.
But he's not qualified to be an England manager, is he?
No, just in the same way that Kevin Keegan came out and said it's not. Everyone's championing Harry Redknapp because he's a great man manager. Years after Kevin Keegan came out and said it's not enough to just be a great man manager. It isn't, and you know, I don't know that. I'm not sure what Harry's qualification is. As somebody just said on the radio, he's won 1 trophy in 30 years of football.
I can't believe I'm hearing this.
We're all holding.
Go on, Tom.
I can't believe that just because we've just watched Tottenham lose a match in the FA Cup semi-final, which is, you know, a decent feat in itself, by the way, that suddenly everyone's coming out and saying Harry Redknapp suddenly, he's only won this, he's only won that, he hasn't got this, he hasn't got
suddenly,
that.
I've been saying all season I wouldn't have him. I don't get Harry as a manager.
I don't understand how you can't get him. I mean, he's got Tottenham in the top 4. I mean, they're a third. I mean, if you look in January, they're playing the best football in the league, and everyone's saying that Harry Redknapp's a miracle worker. Suddenly they lose a few games, and suddenly he's not qualified to do the job.
I think he's qualified to sign good players. When Martin Jol took us to 5th twice, Harry Redknapp's taken us to 4th once.
I think the same. I think it's what's just been mentioned. It's Kevin Keegan all over again. You had playing teams that played attractive football, and there was all the clamour for him to be the England coach, and then it's exactly the same now.
I think if Spurs are as knackered as everyone says they are, and Harry wants to be the England manager, then he needs to rest Scott Parker for the rest of the season for Euro 2012.
Well, he tried. He rested him against Norwich, and we lost.
If Scott Parker kicks another ball this season, it means that Harry Redknapp is essentially a traitor.
Andy,
still not as bad as John Terry.
Andy, would you have him as the England manager?
Redknapp, no way. It's Keegan again, like David says. It's personality over actual sort of ability.
But unfortunately, the case is that out of the last few England managers, Glenn Hoddle, Sven-Goran Eriksson, Fabio Capello, they've all been sacked on the basis of personality. So surely personality comes into it a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, Capello wasn't sacked though, he walked.
Okay, well he walked because he couldn't get on with the FA, as did McLaren, as did Glenn Hoddle, as did Sven-Goran Eriksson. So surely PR is a fairly important part of the England job nowadays, isn't it?
No.
That doesn't mean it's right though, does it?
No. PR is clearly an important part. You have to have a persona that the media like. You have to be able to do interviews and carry along. If you do what Capello did and consistently give non-answers, then the press will turn at you. So Harry has one aspect of the job that he can do well, but there is more to it than just being PR, and I would question whether he has what it takes to take an incredibly poor squad of players, both the Euros and in the future, and make them anything better than they currently are. And
if there's one manager in the league who's decent at taking poor players and making them better than what they are, surely it's Harry Redknapp. If you look at his record with
I would say Martin
Portsmouth,
O'Neill, but he's not
West
going to
Ham, if you look at his record with all the teams he had, what you just said is surely Harry Redknapp's one strength.
Well, no, I disagree. He doesn't take poor players. Name one poor player who Harry Redknapp has taken and made good.
Benoit Asuakoto.
He was not a poor player. We signed him.
He was absolutely awful under Martin O'Neill. Absolutely awful.
I think to do with Asuakoto, we signed him, he was 20 years old at the time. He'd just come from France. He'd only played about 50 games over there.
And I would argue, Benny still can't defend. He's a great footballer. He's not
How about Gareth Bale then? Is he a decent footballer?
Gareth Bale, Harry Redknapp tried to sell. He was quoted as saying he's got no heart, he'll never be a top footballer.
And then he made him into one of the best players in the world, didn't he?
No, if you look, he picked him. He didn't pick him because we lost. Every time he played, we didn't win. And eventually he subbed him on at the end of a game we were going to win, when we had no other left-sided players left. He only picked Gareth Bale when he had no option.
So it's luck, is it, that Gareth Bale has become one of the best players in the world?
It's got nothing to do with Harry Redknapp.
Hasn't it? All right.
Gareth Bale isn't one of the best players in the world either.
Okay.
To be fair, your winger Andy's looked as good as him this year, hasn't he? The lad that Steve Bruce found.
James McLean. Yeah. Well, if Gareth Bale's worth 150 million, then McLean's worth 50 million because he's at least a third of the player that Bale is.
What price Ricardo Vaz-Tay in that case?
Oh, exactly.
Can I just talking about value for money? Will, Chelsea fan there. How do you feel Di Matteo's doing, given that you spent so much on hiring and firing the AVB?
Well, I think he's doing very well, but I think he would do anyway because it's like Goodsitting. Everyone at Chelsea goes on about how great Goodsitting was, but if you take over a team of players fed up with their manager later on in the season, then it's pretty much the easiest. Well, it's not the easiest job in the world, but it's pretty easy. But for the future, I don't think he's the best manager in the world, but I wouldn't mind them hiring him just because if anyone can conquer player power, it's someone who's just as popular as the players who are powerful. If Lampard was to turn against Di Matteo like he did against AVB, then the Chelsea fans would turn on him, which I think is a really powerful thing for Chelsea, and I think that's what they need. Managerial ability, I'm not too sure.
Di Matteo for the England job.
Will, do you think that Di Matteo is a yes man now and he'll just be fitting into Abramovich's vision?
I think he's been quite clever and he's played the yes man so far. I think if he was to get the proper job, then he might not. I think the main problem with Villas-Boas was that he wasn't a yes man from the start, so he didn't try to get anyone on his side. If you turn Lampard, Terry, Ashley Collins to start with, then you haven't got a hope. With Di Matteo, I don't know if he's doing it on purpose. I don't know if he's being a yes man because he's the yes man, or he's doing it because he's being a bit more clever about it. But I think you have to say yes to Chelsea to start with. You need to gain their trust. Otherwise, if you say no to Abramovich to start with, he's just not going to hire you.
Right, Ryan, I'm just going to cut to Ryan now. Ryan, we're talking about yes men. Di Matteo, if he took the job, do you think he's got the scope to recruit properly, scouting team? Can he put together his managerial staff to bring Chelsea on next season?
I'm not sure about Di Matteo long term. I don't think it's. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I'm not sure about Di Matteo long term. I hate to side on the cynics with it, but I think he's very much playing the system that the players want to play, and a system that is tried and tested. I mean, we've gone back to what we know again. I'm not sure that long term he's going to be the solution. He did well with West Brom obviously until they had a bit of a sticky run in the Prem, and then they got rid of him. But I'm not sure about him as a solution. But now we've hired and fired so many managers, we're at a point where do we go? So
how many world-class managers are left?
Yeah, exactly.
Sam, moving on to the final now, Liverpool v Chelsea. This is a match that's going to see John Terry up against Suarez. What do you think their respective game plans are going to be?
Yeah, I expect them to march onto the pitch burning crosses. You get what's the name? He used to make Hitler's films to direct the coverage. I forget her name now. There's a lot of needle in that game. They hate each other, don't they, Chelsea and Liverpool?
Probably hate each other more now as well.
Yeah, yeah.
After booing the minute silence.
Yeah, I only saw that on Twitter. I didn't see it on telly, but apparently the Chelsea fans were
all the way through.
Not all of them.
All the way through. There was another part of the crowd that was trying to keep them quiet, but it was all the way through.
Now, what was that about?
I've no idea. I've no idea. But from the minute they said they're going to do a minute silence, they started chanting and booing, and he blew his whistle, and they did it through the whole thing until eventually the rest cut it short.
Just a few nasty
Chelsea fans. Chelsea fans only became Chelsea fans in 2004. That's why. I don't understand it.
Not true, everyone. I'm pretty sure it's the old guard.
Group. So that should add to the atmosphere.
What do you so, Creasy? What do you make of the final? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, like somebody said earlier on, it would have been a more interesting final if it was Liverpool Tottenham. Yeah, I think you'll see a much more exciting game. I think at the minute Chelsea are just going to be too strong, and Liverpool have got Andy Carroll. Okay.
I think Liverpool have been waiting until this FA Cup final to actually unleash the Carroll. Because I think everything that's gone before now has just been a bluff, and I expect to see 6 or 7 goals from Andy Carroll in the cup final, and it'll become known not as the racist final, which we're all calling it now. It'll be known as the Andy Carroll final, and God bless him, he's earned it.
Mel, you obviously work with players. What do you think's happened with Carroll? Do you think it's the weight of expectation, and now we're seeing the form in the last couple of games?
Well, I don't work with players per se. I did work for the biggest agency.
Okay.
I look after the broadcasting side, so I work with them, but only if they're on TV. But from people I've spoken to who I work with, the general feeling is if you sign a player like Carroll and then don't play to his strengths, i.e. cross the ball that he can head in, then you're not going to get the best of him. And he was probably worth 10 million, not 35. So he's got an added pressure of somebody paying a ridiculous amount of money for him. If he delivered what he's delivered off 10 million quid, probably we wouldn't be talking about it.
Ryan, are you worried about facing Liverpool?
No, not really. I mean, I say not really. I think with the momentum's with us, to be honest. I can see us having a strong end to the season. I still think fourth is going to be a big ask, given that we've got to go to the Emirates and go to Anfield. But purely in terms of the cup final, I think we'll have enough on the day. Granted, we don't suffer any massive injuries.
George, do you see Luka Modric wanting to do the offs in the transfer window? Do you think he'll go this time?
I used to idolise the guy, and then obviously what happened last summer. I still appreciate he's a class player, but I'm not sure his heart's been in it this year. He was playing good football, but he just, I don't know. As a fan, I'm not sure I was seeing the same Modric as I was a year before and a year before that, where he really was trying to prove himself. I feel like he thinks he's bigger than the club a little bit now, and for me, we probably should just get shot of him.
Harry's such a great manager. Surely he could have been able to turn that around, couldn't he?
I'm not a great defender of Harry Redknapp, so I'm not going to try and defend that.
Who would you like to see as the Spurs manager then, George?
Me?
If you could take your pick, who do you want in that seat?
What, anyone in the world?
Anyone in the world, yeah.
I'd go
ABH, anyone but Harry.
Anyone but Harry, yeah. I'd go Carlo Ancelotti. I think where's he not done a good job? I think he's the best in the world, in my opinion. And I was gutted when he went to PSG as well, because I genuinely thought he was going to be our next manager as well.
There's a lot of money at PSG, isn't there?
Yeah, I know, it's unfortunate.
Tom, does this shock you that these two other Spurs fans are quite happy to see someone else in the job?
No, it doesn't. I've listened to Spurs fans be like this for years and years and years. I think it's a shame. I don't think Harry Redknapp's the best manager in the world. I don't. I don't also think that if Redknapp goes to the England job, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think if Spurs get the right man in, I think they can kick on. But I don't buy this theory that suddenly Harry Redknapp's the root of all Tottenham's problems, and I just think that's an absolute nonsense.
No, I don't mean that at all. Like what he's done for the club's amazing. I just think taking us to another level, we need someone else. That's just my opinion. It's been my opinion for about 2 years as well. So.
Yeah. Would Tottenham fans be happy with Brendan Rodgers, as being talked about?
I prefer David Moyes personally. He'd be my first choice.
Who's that?
David Moyes.
I'm just on a similar level to them, mate.
Yeah.
To Redknapp. They just,
listen, Mel, you've just made me think about something we were talking about earlier. David Moyes has never won anything. Do you think there's a possibility that it wasn't just about the players' abilities on the pitch today, but that Chelsea, nearly all of that Chelsea team have won competitions, whereas I don't think anybody in that Spurs team have won anything?
No, I don't think we could talk about today as a realistic. I mean, I'm just reading on here, Leslie King saying about the goal. How did the ref give it? I think discarding today's game, if Tottenham in form against Chelsea in form, Tottenham would have won. If you take away the ref's decision, Tottenham haven't been in form for 5 or 6 games, then you get a bad decision. The reason we're not in form is because we have played. If you look at the stats, the amount of times Harry picks the same team every week. There are guys now running on empty when other managers have rested players. Fergie gives them 10 days off through the season, everything else. Our players, Modric, empty, probably disinterested. Parker, empty. Bale, empty. We've got our key players who have got nothing left. Now, I don't know who you blame if you don't blame the manager for the fact that your players coming into the end of the season are all exhausted and in some cases demotivated. If that's not the manager's fault, I don't know. Clearly players have a responsibility as far as motivation.
Do you think he's done enough, Mel, to distance himself on the possibility that he was on the shortlist for the England job?
Who, Harry?
I mean, he hasn't really. I mean,
I think Harry would love any job that pays more than Tottenham.
Yeah.
Whether it's Chelsea, England, or whatever other job comes up, Paris Saint-Germain. As far as whether Moyes has won trophies or whatever, David Moyes, we will never know until he goes to a big club what he's capable of doing. But he is somebody else who seems to take players and make them better. Whereas I don't see with Harry any sign of coaching. We don't score a goal from a set piece ever. We don't ever practice free kicks. They do 8-a-side in training and nothing else. I have to believe there's more to taking a player and making Benny Akoto, an example given, is a good footballer who cannot defend. Now, how do you make someone a better defender? Kyle Walker, Harry says, can't defend. Well, train him then. Train him to defend. He's clearly got the ability to be coached. Now, I think that's what a manager should do. That's what David Moyes does. Brendan Rodgers clearly does that. I don't know if Brendan Rodgers, it might be a step too soon. Probably. David Moyes has never been at a club where he's had any money to spend.
Tom, you're shaking your head. Sam Delaney's grinning. Sam, just moving on to some of the players that might not be at these respective teams next season. Who would you have from those games today at West Ham if you managed to scrape your way into the Premiership?
I don't think there's a chance of any of those players coming to us either way.
Well,
but
Drogba's on a free. And
I don't think
Sullivan's have bought.
He's going to go and play for Nicholas Anelka, who is now a manager out in China. And his assistant manager is Ian Walker, the former Spurs goalkeeper, which is sort of brilliantly bizarre. Yeah,
recipe for success.
Well, it's just so weird. They've gone, right, we want you to be manager, Nicholas. Have you thought about your number 2? And he said, of course, Ian Walker. What else? What, do you think I'm stupid? Just get Ian Walker on the plane over here straight away. So Ian Walker is now the assistant to Nicholas Anelka, and it's only a matter of time before they are the 2 in charge of Chelsea. But going back to the players who I would like to sign for West Ham, I would imagine that William Gallas is going to struggle to ever play for Tottenham again, and there won't be many clubs after him, which would probably put a club like West Ham, who have a grand tradition of signing people who used to be good and have now turned useless, in the driving seat for his signature. I thought he was terrible today. He fell to pieces once. I mean, he was all right in the first half, but soon, Spurs fans, obviously the luck went against them, and they didn't have a good day anyway. But it would have been nice not to have been mullered by your big London rivals 5-1. And that's why you need players to sort of just take it seriously. Even if, you're 3-1 down, you haven't won. But carry on taking it seriously to the end, because you've got a load of fans who've turned up and made a lot of noise for you. And you're playing crucially against some bitter rivals. And I thought that Gallas was one of those guilty of just looking like they just, oh, well, screw this, I'm not interested anymore. And I thought he was really poor. So he's the one that West Ham will sign.
What do you Spurs boys think of that?
Spurs, would you mind if Gallas went to Sam?
We've always been a feeder club for West Ham.
Alright, Chelsea in the final. Predictions please, Chelsea fans.
Be tight. Definitely be tight. I'd say 2-0.
2-0 Chelsea.
Yeah.
Right, now you're man of the match, Ryan. Go on.
Sorry?
You're man of the match.
Today, without a doubt, Drogba. It was not all that matter with a dodgy goal. Yeah, a dodgy goal and 2 assists.
Will, what's your prediction and who is your man of the match?
Again, I think it's going to be quite close. It'll be 1-1 until the late stage, and then maybe 2-1 Chelsea, hopefully. And man of the match, I guess it's got to be Drogba, really. Although I don't know. I always think Pavlou plays well, although I know a lot of other people don't. But I thought he was absolutely everywhere, which I thought was. I know he's got a mistake in him, but he's just up and down the pitch, and I think that's why he's displaced Daniel Sturridge, really. Under Di Matteo, so I go for Drogba. But
he's more of a team player, Pavlou, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a brilliant team player, really good team player.
It's funny how passionately supporting your own team blinds you in a way, because if you compare those two predictions to Andy Dawson, who believes Andy Carroll's going to score 6 or 7 goals. Andy, any other predictions for the final?
The FA Cup final in association with Budweiser. I'm here in association with Stella Artois tonight. So
I'm very jealous of that, actually. I keep seeing that and wishing I had one.
It's 2012. It's the FA Cup final. Who gives a toss?
Precy, what are your thoughts on the final?
I'm going to go Chelsea 3-1. Gerrard will give them a little bit of hope by equalising, but it'll finish 3-1. But just going back to the man of the match today.
Martin Atkinson.
What's that?
Martin Atkinson.
Yeah.
Man of the match, Martin Atkinson.
I'm going to say John Terry, because if he didn't stop that one on the line in the first half, the momentum that Tottenham had, they could have went on and won the game.
And if he didn't celebrate that goal that wasn't actually a goal as well.
I wonder if this is the first FA Cup final where both managers have won it.
Interesting, and nobody knows the answer.
Yeah. I don't. George, what prediction, please, for the final?
In the final, really boring 0-0 draw, probably. I don't know who I want to win. I really.
Win the FA Cup, are they?
I loathe both clubs so much. I just don't know who.
Are you going to be watching it?
It's the FA Cup final. I've got to, haven't I? But I'll probably go Liverpool 2-1. I think.
Why do you just briefly? Why do you think Spurs have lost their last 6 semi-finals, Mel?
I don't know. It was probably all Harry's fault. I don't know. I mean, semi-finals come down to luck a lot of the time, don't they? We had years of winning them, and now we're on a run of not winning them.
It's because there wasn't a 1 in the end of the year. That's why.
Well, yeah, there was that as well, and then the 2, and I don't know.
Maybe they think that the competition just ends at the semi-final.
I don't know. I mean, how can you compare between times and teams? I mean, different people in charge, different people playing. I think I've probably been at all of them, and I'm beginning to care less and less, so at least there's that.
Right, Delaney, come on, give us your predictions.
Yeah, lots of racism, and just...
What about in the crowd?
I just think it's just boring, and I may not watch. I mean, the FA Cup finals had a problem as a sort of a brand for a lot of years now, because it doesn't have that kind of magic and excitement that surrounds it that used to be, and that's all well documented. But I was sort of hoping, as we've said, that a Liverpool-Spurs final, there was something about that seemed like a very exciting prospect. And Liverpool-Chelsea is just a final, I feel, it's just stuff that you've just seen before. You've seen them play loads of semi-finals against each other. It'll be really dire and boring. And Chelsea traditionally have been the least popular club, really, in the country. Like, it's the club that all neutrals really dislike. And Liverpool have kind of caught up with them this season. I mean, I started, but Liverpool now have become, it's like a wankers club now, and you just like, and so now it's like the 2 most unpopular teams in the Premier League competing in a game that is going to be dire. So I'll probably creosote the fence or something. I don't care what the score is.
Sam, do you think the FA Cup will be better? The final will be better if it was on the BBC? Is it shit because it's on ITV?
Yeah, it was pretty bad on ITV. I'm not really a fan of Charles.
No,
really.
listen, he's got to be on ESPN.
Yeah, well, I like Stubbsy. He's my favourite. So if Stubbsy does it, then count me in. Yeah.
Yeah, did you notice yesterday at the side of the pitch? It looked a little bit like they were all there in their grey suits. It looked a little bit like a sort of a car salesman's tea room, like they were having a coffee break.
Yeah, it's where you get sold really bad finance on your new sort of Nissan Qashqai, isn't it? They have like a weird plastic table that they lure you over to.
Tom, what are you going to be doing on FA Cup final day?
Something else. Something else. I don't. Chelsea historically have never provided a good final. I don't think ever in this modern era. I think they always tend to sort of set out quite boring teams. I remember that one against Man United was an absolute torture. It was 0-0, wasn't it? And then Drogba nicked the goal in the last minute or something of extra time. That was awful. So since then, I don't think I'm ever going to watch Chelsea in a final again.
Okay, thanks then. Well, that's been great. It's been fantastic. We've had 40 minutes of really good discussion. This has been I'm going to just thank everybody. Will and Ryan, who are the happy Chelsea fans. Mel Chappell, who's a slightly disgruntled Spurs fan. George and Tom, who's furious at his fellow Spurs fans. Sam Delaney, West Ham fan. Andy Dawson, Sunderland fan. And David Priest, Barnsley's goalkeeper and Sabotage Times writer. Thanks very much for taking part in this Sabotage Times Google Plus Hangout. And we'll probably do it again very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.